Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening. I'm Jean-Philippe Riviere, and I'm currently working as a researcher in human-computer interaction in the University of Nantes. I will present a work previously done at the University of Paris-Saclay, entitled Exploring the Role of Artifacts in Collective Dance Restaging. This work has been written with my collaborators, Fdili, Alaoui, Baptiste, Caramiaux, and Wendy, Mackay. Learning to dance can be, and is usually, a collaborative process between dancers and dancers, or between a teacher and one or multiple dancers. As an example, I have a video of a contemporary dance rehearsal performed by a dance company. On the right, you can see the teacher counting the rhythm, and on the middle, you can see the dancers. While today we see technology entering the field of dance performance, we rarely see technology used during dance rehearsal. And the reason for that, it might be that the tool designed to support dance learning today focus more on the individual learning process than the collaborative learning process. So the objective of this research was to better understand collaborative learning context in dance with the aim of suggesting implications for designing tools that can support dance collaborative practices. In order to follow a dance learning journey, we started a longitudinal study with an amateur dance company that restaged an existing contemporary dance piece called Frame. There were 12 good dancers, some professional, some not, but the common point is that none of them knows the piece beforehand. So they learned it with the help of a rehearsal director, who was a former dancer of the piece, a company director, and also a video. So here I have a video to give you an idea of what Frame, the dance piece, looks like. Frame is a 20-minute choreography comprising 8 parts. It combines duets, where dancers are dancing together, and trios, and also a part where the dancers recite the text together while dancing. Much of the dancing is done to fast music with coordinated movements that can mimic combat movements, kind of. So in order to understand how collaboration unfolds during the learning process, we mainly focused on the artifact produced by the stakeholders. It means the dancers and the rehearsal director. We collected, for example, videos of rehearsal, tutorial videos, textual representation of the piece, scores, notation diagrams. We also introduced a tool that we created called Move On that supports the segmentation of dance video. By introducing this tool in the dance studio, our goal was not to study the tool itself, but rather to extend the panel of tools that dancers have access to and to understand how it can be integrated into among other tools. In parallel to focusing on artifact, we ran 2 focus groups with the company. We conducted interviews with 2 dancers, one with the rehearsal director and one with the company director. We also used a questionnaire to track the use of artifacts, and last but not least, because it was a longitudinal study, I observed hours of learning and I kept handwritten notes. In order to analyze all this data, for each artifact, we counted who used it, who appropriated it, who shared it, and for how long. We also compared the artifact corresponding to the same part of the piece to understand which representation was used. From there, we created a map of the use of artifact. To analyze the group discussion and interview, we performed a thematic analysis to extract themes related to collaboration. You can find a complete timeline of the use of artifact into the paper. So let's get to the results. We found that, first of all, different artifacts can represent the same information, but usually through different forms. For example, on the right, we can see that the rehearsal director created this artifact to visualize the accentuation of the movement according to the music during the part 4 of the piece. In red, the rehearsal director decided to put in red the moment where dancers have to emphasize their movement. So when you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 with accentuation of the 4th movement. So about this document, the rehearsal director said, several kinds of learning exist. Either you can memorize, so musically, or you can visualize. This document was handy for that. Here, I just isolated the musical side in terms of pose and movement with colors and punctuation. But in fact, the dancer 4 also created another document to represent the rhythm, but with a different structure in different form. It's a musical score. So on the right, this document, the rehearsal director said that I have the feeling that we are all sharpened on one thing, and all learning angles are complementary at different levels. We have different learning strategies. So dancers have different learning strategies, which explain that they are creating different artifacts. But because participants produce the artifact with their own perspective, their own vocabulary, the tools they master, these limit their sharing. For example, D5 created a series of diagrams, and we have an example on the right, but some dancers decide not to use it, like dancers 11. He said, I did not use D5's document because he oriented it in one way, and I would have oriented it in the opposite way, because we think and we work differently. Let's take another example with Banished Notation. Banished Notation is a codified way of writing choreography. It's a document, an example of Banished Notation can be seen on the right. Here, D1 said that you have to be a notator to read Banished Notation, and you can't access it otherwise. In fact, here, D1 embodies his expertise into his artifact. And we, human, we cannot read it. To overcome such limitations, dancers decided to compile artifacts together. They gathered and they compiled artifacts into what they call the Rehearsal Notebook. They printed 12 versions of this Rehearsal Notebook to disseminate the same information among all dancers. Thus, for them, it was possible for each dancer to dynamically select, discard, introduce, or repurpose the artifacts according to their individual needs, but also to the collective needs. Dancer 3 said also that each time we had a lot of comments and a lot of things to say, a lot of things to add, we need to condense all of this in a class 2N document. So several lessons can be drawn from this result. As a designer, we need to account for the diversity of the learning methods. And a method for that is might be to represent the information through a different form, for example, the rhythm, but also to compile documents to allow each dancer to have access to the same information. Another result is we found that a dancer can become a referent dancer. It means an expert on a specific part of the choreography for the others. Indeed, some dancers move faster than others on certain part of the choreography. So they will become a teacher at one point. As explained by D11, I haven't used my notebook since a long time. I prefer to rely on other dancers now. So in fact, artifacts are not sufficient to seeing this. So D1 say that there is a collective kinesthetic memory. It's not visible in any document. And in fact, if you want to see this happening, this role shifting, you have to be there with the dancers at this exact point where some dancers know the choreography and others don't. So an implication for that is that we can design tools at different moments of the learning process, but also for different roles, for the dancers, for the choreographers, for the referent dancers. And do not forget to build on the different expertise of each actor. This expertise will evolve over time, differently for each dancer. To conclude, through a 12 months observational longitudinal study, we tried to understand the collaborative process of learning to dance. During this process, dancers built, shared, compiled artifacts to learn individually, but also collectively. Learning to dance is not only an implicit phenomenon automated through practice, but it's also a process where the ability to analyze, understand the choreography play an important role. It's even more important when dancers are interacting and collaborating with each other over a long period of time, where the role of each practitioner tends to evolve. Finally, if you are interested in understanding collaboration in dance, this article might be for you. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.